everyone, how are you? I hope you're all doing fine. So I've just finished reading another set of books and I thought, why not share them again? So here's part 2 of the books I read in 2022. For those who have already watched my previous video, thank you. But for those who haven't watched it yet, I hope you find time after watching this video. For today, I'll be sharing my personal thoughts on 3 new books that I recently finished. It's lesser in number compared to my previous video, but don't worry because I'll try to add more information per book and I'll try my best to avoid the super spoilers. Okay, let's start! The first book that I'll share today is The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. This is actually a random pick. No one really recommended it to me personally, and it just so happened to be included in the collection of books that my good friend Shane shared with me, so I thought, okay, I'll just choose this one. But I'm really thankful to my instinct for choosing this right away because this was a very good book, and I loved it. By the way, The Simple Wild is part of the Wild series, and this is the first book. But this can also be a standalone, which means that even if you don't read the other books in the series, you'll be able to fully understand the whole story of this one. The Simple Wild is a story about a girl named Calla Fletcher who is a certified city girl living in Canada with her mom and stepdad because her parents separated when she was still very young. On the other hand, Calla's dad, Ren Fletcher, was staying in a far part of Alaska near the mountains, Bangor, Alaska, which they also often referred to as the Wild. One day, someone from Alaska called Calla asking her to visit because her dad was suffering from a terminal illness. Calla was hesitant at first, but eventually she decided to go. In Alaska, Calla met a number of people close to her dad, including a guy named Jonah, who is a pilot in her dad's charter company. But they didn't go along well at first. It's not really enemies to lovers because they're not really enemies. It's just that Jonah kept on giving Calla a hard time. Eventually, they became comfortable with each other, but one issue still remained. That if their relationship became deeper, who will adjust for who? Because Calla still wanted to go back and stay in the city, but Jonah never wanted to leave the Wild. Personally, I really like the relationship between Calla and Jonah because there's just the right amount of tension between them, and Jonah's way of teasing Calla was actually cute and kilig. Now, aside from the love story between Calla and Jonah, another thing that I really liked was Calla's relationship with her dad. Because when Calla arrived in Alaska, it was very awkward and she didn't know how to form a bond with someone whom she haven't seen for so many years. But throughout the story, we get to see Calla's journey and building a relationship with her dad before it's too late. Can Calla really forgive and accept? And can Calla really understand the choices and actions that her parents did, especially her father's? Overall, this book gave me a roller coaster of emotions and the twists were also good. I loved this book, and if you haven't read it yet, I recommend that you do. The next book that I'll share is another Mariana Zapata book entitled The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. As I've shared on my previous video, Mariana Zapata books are slow burn books, which again means that the story and the relationship of the characters develop slowly. The Wall of Winnipeg and Me is a story about a girl named Vanessa Mazur who is a personal all-around assistant of a guy named Aiden Graves, a famous Canadian athlete who plays American football for an American team. So as a personal assistant, Vanessa was in charge of Aiden's meals, Aiden's laundries, answering his emails, posting pictures on his social media sites, and all those stuff. Vanessa has been working for Aiden for a couple of years already and she was actually okay with the job because the pay was really good. But there is just one problem. She hated someone so much, and that is her very own boss. Vanessa has done so much for Aiden since the start, but she felt like she wasn't really appreciated. Aiden doesn't pay attention to her, he doesn't even greet her, and he only talks to her when he needs her to do something for him. One day when Vanessa had enough savings to start her own business, she finally decided that she won't put up with that kind of treatment anymore. So, she resigned as Aiden's assistant. Aiden didn't really care and he just asked for a new assistant. No drama, no begging her to stay, nothing. So Vanessa was like, okay, good, let's have our own separate lives now. When Vanessa resigned, she started to pursue things she always wanted to do. But one day, someone suddenly appeared outside her apartment, and it was none other than her ex-boss, Aiden Graves. Aiden was actually asking Vanessa to work for him again, and he's asking for an additional big favor. I won't say what the favor was because it will spoil a big part of the story, but let's just say that it involved the future of both Aiden and Vanessa. At that point, it was actually easy for Vanessa to say no because she thought that the whole favor was absurd and unbelievable anyway. But Aiden suddenly offered a deal that Vanessa couldn't just say no to. Even though this is a slow burn book, I liked how the scenarios were well described and that it had a lot of added details, which made it easier for the readers to imagine what was happening. There's not much batters here because Aiden is a man of few words, but overall, I also like the story. Although the background story of both Aiden and Vanessa were quite deep, I still found their whole love story cute. Aiden and Vanessa's relationship was a very simple one, but along the way, you'll know that it's pure and that Aiden's actions definitely spoke louder than words. The third and final book for this video is one of the currently talked about books in social media, and it's Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. This is my second Colleen Hoover book, and on my previous video, I talked about It Ends With Us and I told you that I cried while reading it. In this one, Ugly Love, I think I cried a bit more. Ugly Love tells the story of a girl named Tate Collins who is a nurse and who just moved into her brother's apartment because it is nearer her work and school. Tate's brother is a pilot and living across his place is one of his guy friends, co-workers, and co-pilot named Miles Archer. Miles and Tate's meet-up happened very early in the story. In fact, when Tate moved in, she already met Miles, but in a quite unusual way. They weren't really close at first until one night when they were together, they suddenly decided to make a deal that they're going to have like a friends with benefits kind of relationship, which means that there's no love involved and that they're only going to satisfy each other's physical needs. Also, they have two specific rules, but I'm not going to say who exactly said it. But I quote from the book, "Don't ask about my past and never expect a future." Ouch, right? But eventually, someone started falling deeply, but the other cannot compensate the love. And as we go on with the story, we get to see the other ugly aspects of love. This is another multiple point of view book, which means that some chapters were narrated from Miles' point of view, while some chapters were narrated from Tate's point of view. And here's an interesting thing. One of them narrated the present, while the other narrated the past. I also won't say who is who because the one who narrated the past was also the one who had a very heavy and painful experience which prevented that character to love again. And that same person was the one who made the two rules earlier. And because it was impossible for that person to love again, the other person was also suffering. Just like in It Ends With Us, Ugly Love has a number of trigger warnings. And since Miles and Tate have this kind of friends with benefits type of relationship, a lot of chapters focused on physical intimacy. So you just have to watch out for those, or if you want, you can search more about it before reading. Once again, the plot twists were so good. Plot twists, Colleen Hoover, great combination. The story of Ugly Love was really painful, and I honestly haven't experienced the things that these characters experienced, and yet it broke my heart. But the ending was really good. And I think a good way to summarize this book is, this book crushed my heart into pieces, but it also put all the pieces back together in the end. So that's it for this video, and I hope you enjoyed the things that I've shared. If you haven't read these books yet, and if you're still undecided if you're going to read them, I hope I was also able to help you decide. Until my next video, keep safe, be happy, and God bless.